like it? Is it really good?
It's great. It's better than chocolate chip cookies.
Hi, I'm Quincas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to the video manual for the Erica Synths drum sequencer. This is a full-featured, very tactile, very fun to play, very powerful and very accurate sequencer by Erica Synths. Erica have asked me to actually make a video manual for it so that you can get up and running quickly. So let's get started by just looking at the panel. First thing you might notice is the nice keypad here. These are super nice keys. They feel very musical to play. They respond amazingly well. You can do rolls and things on them. You get the same kind of keys over here on the transport control. Play will always start a sequence in its beginning. The stop will stop the sequence and will continue it from where you stopped it if you press it again. So it's kind of like a pause rather than a stop. And the record is generally used to save whatever changes you've made. When you see it blinking, it means you've made a change that hasn't been saved. So get used to pressing it often so you don't lose your progress if it accidentally turns off, or if you change to a different pattern, or if you perform an undo. And it's actually a record button when you're using the tap edit mode, and we'll get to that in a minute. Over here you have a very nice OLED display, nice and bright. You can pretty much see in any kind of lighting situation. You have the two encoders here. The left encoder cycles through the options on the top line of the display, and they're highlighted by becoming capitalized, so that's how you know which one is selected. And the bottom one changes the parameters on the option that you've chosen. So you cycle through on the left here, and once you've chosen a parameter you want to edit, you edit it by turning the right encoder. These encoders are also push buttons and serve many functions depending on what mode you're on. Now you have also 12 function keys right here, which serve numerous purposes. They get you to different pages, they allow you to edit different parameters, and often there are two ways to achieve the same thing. For example, length, you can do it by navigating the screen here, but you can also set it by pressing last step and choosing any of the step keys. That will also set the length of your pattern. Up here we have a MIDI input, a reset input, a clock input, a clock output. These two are the gate and CV outputs because you do also have a melodic sequence in here. So apart from the 16 trigger channels, you also have one extra channel, which is a gate and CV channel that you can actually use to program something melodic, like a bass line or a lead or something like that. Over here we have two LFO outputs for the two built-in LFOs that are available in the module. Both LFOs have selectable waveforms and clock division. Now over here are the trigger outputs 1 through 14, and over here 15 and 16. And you also have accent outputs 1 through 12. So the first 12 channels have accent outputs as well, and some of the Erica Synths modules have accent inputs, which makes it very handy to use together. The patch I've put together is very simple. Basically, I have 7 drum voices going on here, and they're set up in order. Let's go into tap mode really quick here. I just want to show you the voices. So the first one is pico drum, doing like a bass drum. The second one is sample drum channel 1, doing another bass drum. Sample drum channel 2, doing a hi-hat. My second pico drum 2 is doing this kind of a disco hit. Channel 5 is triggering the Erica clap. Channel 6 is triggering the pico voice, which right now is a Carpus strong voice. And it's auto panning because it's going into channel 3 on the black output module, which has CV over pan. Trigger number 7 is the Erica Synths snare drum module, and that's it for percussion voices. Right up here is my Kleine Fusion system, which I'm using as my subtractive melodic synthesizer voice. And there are two ways to access that. One of them is going here on trig in the display and changing that. This selects which trigger channel you want to edit. And the last option is CV. So now if I press tap here, I can actually perform on the Kleine Fusion. We'll get to how to edit things on this mode soon enough. But first, let's backtrack a little bit and let's have a look at these function buttons so we know what the basic modes are. When the pattern button is blinking, that means you're in pattern edit mode, which means you can program your pattern. If you press it again, it becomes solid and now you're in pattern play mode. Pattern play mode allows you to change the BPM, for example, by turning this knob, and it allows you to select which pattern you want to play next. It'll always play until the end of the current pattern and then change to the one that you've selected to play next. And as you can see, as I press different keys on the keypad here, that's reflected in the pattern field here. Now notice there's also a letter before the number. That's the bank. The drum sequencer has 8 banks available. Each bank has 16 patterns. So you have a whole lot of space to store your ideas. So if I hold the bank button, I can click on any one of the first 8 keys of the keypad and now have access to the different banks. Let's leave it at bank 1 for now, pattern 1 as well, and let's press the pattern button and go into pattern edit mode. The first thing we'll do is step edit one of the channels. So I'm going to choose the hi-hat channel, which is number 3 over here. And we can simply, 909 style, program in a beat, turn it on, right? And I can do the same for that big old kick drum from Pico Drums 2 by holding trigger select and selecting channel 1, right? The other way to achieve this is by going to trigger here on the display and changing it that way. So there are 2 ways to do that. So we're back to trigger 1. Let's just give us a big 1 there. Now you can program your entire beat this way, but there's also a tap edit mode, which you achieve by pressing the step tap button. That means you can just tap your beat. So first you can audition. Once you like what you did, you can hit record. Nice. There we go. That was clap and snare simultaneously here. Now we have that disco tom thing. Cool, right? Now, how do you access the accents? Well, that's pretty easy. You go back to step, and the only modules I have right now in this system that have accents are clap and snare. So this is clap right here. To enable accents, I have to press shift and trigger select, and then you will see a little plus here right before the 5. Once you've enabled accents, now pressing the button cycles you through 3 stages instead of just 2. When there are no accents, it's just on and off. When there are accents, you can have an accident note, and silence. So this right now is unaccented, while this one is accented. So it's acting like a grace note leading up to the clack right here. So let's go to the snare drum now. Trigger select snare drum, and we can do the same thing. So shift trigger select. We've now enabled accent, and yes, the accent outputs are connected obviously to these 2 modules. They're the only 2 I'm using. This is just a 16-step sequence. In other words, 1 bar. But we can change that. How do we change that? Like I was mentioning earlier, there are a few ways to do it. You can do it by simply changing the length this way by turning the encoder in the length category. Another way to do it is by selecting last step and just selecting a step, and that'll change it. Now I only have 16 pads here. What if I want to use this option, last step, but go beyond 16? Well, that's easy. You go here to bar and then you change it so that you're visualizing bar 2 of the sequence. And now I can hold last step and press the last key here, and I have a 32-step sequence, or a 2-bar sequence. And I can do this with, again, up to 4 bars. So the last step of the 4th page will give you 64, but you can obviously get any value. So bar 4 gives me 49 to 64. Bar 3 gives me 33 to 48. Bar 2 gives me 17 to 32. And of course, bar 1 gives me 1 through 16. The scale option over here, this has nothing to do with musical scale. This is rhythmic scale, also known as division multiplication. So this is the value of each step, and it can be edited per instrument, right? So I can have the hi-hat, for example, trigger select the hi-hat, and right now it's doing that, right? Now if I change the scale to 32nd notes, check out what happens. If I change it again to 16th note triplets, I can even do polyrhythms that way. Here's 8th note triplets. Now if you need to reset, just press that play button again and the pattern starts from the beginning. So let's record a little bass line now, and we do that again by pressing trigger select and pressing the right encoder. That gets me right into CV trigger. And there are two ways again to program the CV sequence. The first one, same as if it were a drum sequence, you just select which steps you want gates on. Now by pressing the left encoder, I now have the options to edit each one of these steps. So by pressing a step, it starts blinking. That means that's the one I can edit. So I can go to note here and change it to an F. Now I can choose that other note over there and change that to an A. Select this note over here and change the note to a G. Let's see this one. There we go. Now there are other things that you can edit as well. So if I want this note to be longer, I can just go to length over here. I can make it very short. I kind of like it long. Now this one, if I want, I can have it tie to the other one, because the last length setting is tie. Right? Which is really nice as well. And then these, I can make them very short. Or just this one, right? Make it more rhythmic that way. So that's one way to record the CV sequence, right? It takes two steps. First you program the steps and then you edit each step. Now if I want to erase this, there are two ways as well. First, let's save it. I can erase it by holding clear while it's playing. I let go of the clear and then it kept my last two notes. Now if I hold shift and then press clear, it'll just erase the whole pattern. If you have a long pattern and you only want to erase a few notes, then you can just hold clear for as long as you need to. If you want to erase the whole pattern, shift clear does it quickly. And the other way to program a bass line is using the tap mode. If I press tap here, already I see a few options on this display. So one of them is the scale. So I can come over here to the left side and choose between chromatic, major, minor, pentatonic, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian, Locrian. So you have pretty much all the modes plus pentatonic. Let's try pentatonic. root note. The root parameter is root note, so I can maybe, why don't we use F? And here's the octave, right? We're at -1 octave. Let's hear how that sounds. Why don't we go down 1 more octave? That's better. And notice that our voice, our Pico voice changed pitch as well. It's also connected to that volt per octave output there. So let's hit record and manually program this bass line. There we go. If you want to edit other parameters, you have to get out of tab and, for example, change the length. Let's make it a 32 step sequence, so 2 bars, right? And here we see the bars cycling. Go back to tab, hit record, and of course I can still edit with step edit. Now, right now, this is a 2-bar phrase, and we're only seeing one screen. We're only seeing the first bar. If you want this display to scroll as the bars advance, you can simply go to bar over here on the display and press the right encoder. Once that arrow shows up, now, the other feature that we didn't look at and is also super cool, it's a randomization feature. So now let's say you want to randomize that. Let's go back to the pattern programming. Now here's another one for my cheat sheet. Shift Shuffle from CV pattern edit page. You get this special page over here where you can assign randomization features. So let's just randomize note and length for now. And the way to apply it is by pressing bank. And there it is, my randomized sequence. If I like it, I can save it and it stays there just as if I had programmed it myself. Now let's randomize some more parameters here. Octave and steps. So now it's gonna create its own arrangement of steps and vary octaves as well. So press bank again. Nice. And you can press bank as many times as you want until you get the sequence that you really like. This one's really nice. So once I hit save, it's now part of that sequence. One more feature of the CV and gate sequencer on the drum sequencer that I failed to mention, it was a bit hidden in the manual, but I think it's a fun and important one. It's the slides. So let's quickly program a bass line here. Now, in order to slide between adjacent notes, and that's the only kind you can do, you just press the 2 buttons together. You see that little S there? That indicates there's a slide right there. Now, you can tie them together too. That works pretty cool. So let's slide these. See the S show up over there? Let's make this one tie as well. Wasn't too happy with it. Make it short. That's cool. Let's tie these two too. Cool. So that's it. I just wanted to show you that you can do slides between notes. Let's have a look at the mute screen. So let's get that beat going again. And we'll hit the mute button. That'll get us to the mute screen. So we can just mute as many of these voices as we want to. If I want to mute the CV gate channel, it's the right encoder. There we go. When you're in mute mode, which is when the mute button is lit, there are a few other things you can do. One of them, for example, is solo. So if I want to solo any of these tracks, I can just hold shift and press it, and now you've muted, basically I've muted every other trigger track and allowed only this one, right? And I can do the same for a few others, right? As many as I need. Now, while holding shift, if I hit any of these tracks again, it'll unsolo them all. And you can also solo or mute the LFOs, right? We haven't gotten to the LFOs yet, but so you know this is where you would be able to turn them off or have everything else turn off except for the LFOs. Mute arming. Let's just play a pattern here. Go to the mute page, and let's say you want to mute a certain number of pads at once. The way you can do that is by holding the mute button, and while holding it you can select which ones you want to mute, and then when you let go of the mute button, they get muted. And the same works for unmute arming. So I can hold the mute again, reselect those same 3 patterns, 3 tracks, let go, and they come back in. So that's pretty handy. Let's say you want to mute everybody but the loop. And 2, 3, and nothing but the loop. Now, another little thing I failed to mention about the mute screen is how to disable all mutes simultaneously globally. So let's do some mutes here. Let's say we've muted these and I want to disable all of the mutes. I can simply hold shift and press mute, and then everybody's back. Now let's say you want this to swing, you want a shuffle. Let's mute that bass line for now. First I'll select the hi-hat channel, and then I'll hold shuffle and turn the value with the right encoder. So now only our hi-hat is shuffled and nothing else. Now let's say you want to do this globally. You don't want to have to go channel per channel, because right now the subdivisions aren't matching, right? So first go into pattern play mode and then hold the shuffle. And now everybody is in that same shuffle mode, right? I can make it a little more subtle, or even no shuffle at all. Another parameter that works the same way is the direction parameter. You can have your pattern go backwards, forwards, or ping pong, which is backwards and forwards. So right now it's going forward. You can make it go backward. So that's my pattern going backwards. And I can make it go backwards and forwards. And again, because I'm in pattern play mode, which is the solid LED on the pattern, it's doing it globally, right? Now, let's hold direction again, go back to forward, and go back to pattern edit mode. Just pressing that button starts blinking. And now I can do this with individual channels, right? So whatever channel selected, and I can see which one is by either looking at my display here. So that's 3, that's the hi-hat. Or I can hold trigger select and see which LED is lit on my keypad. But let's go to number 6 here, which is our Pico voice, right? Let's make it last a little longer. Now we want that to go backwards while everything else is going forwards. So I can just hold direction and turn it to backwards. There you go. You can make it ping pong, Oh, and there's even random. In fact, randomizing the whole pattern is a fun way to create a sort of a fill. So let's change that to forward. So as you can see, some of these parameters can be applied per step if you're in pattern edit mode, or globally if you're in pattern play mode. Now let's say you like this pattern and you want to make a variation of it. You can very easily copy it. So you can just select the pattern that you want to copy, press copy, select the destination pattern, press paste. So now that I have the copy of this pattern, I can make edits to it and change certain things. Let's just save it if you like it, remember. And then let's go back to pattern play and we can alternate between these two. Press this one and there it goes. Now something really cool that you can do is the fill page. No matter where you are in the system, if you hold shift and step tap, it'll put you in pattern edit, fill mode. The fill will do a ratchet or some kind of roll, right? And here you can determine how fast you want that fill to be. So let's make a 16 note fill here on the snare. Right, I can make it 24. It's more like a roll. 32. Yeah. And it goes all the way up to 128. Listen to the hi-hat at 128 fill. Right? It's almost like a tone at this point. And it still responds even if you hold the key and turn the fill. And this can be recorded. So if I just hit record here, now if I didn't like that, I can undo it, right? Undo is basically go back to saved state. So if I hold the left encoder and press the right one, it'll erase all those fills because my last recording of this beat didn't have them. Right, so I can now try again. Shift step. Now let's say I like this now, remember to hit the record, and now it's saved. So now I can't undo it. But if I do something else I don't like, then I can undo it and it'll go back to this state right here. Now let's say you want to copy a pattern to a different bank. Well, that's pretty straightforward. You go to pattern play mode here. Let's say this is the pattern number 1, the one I want to copy. Right, I press copy. Now I go to bank E, choose number 2 here, and paste it, and there it is. Right? That easy. Now the copy and paste buttons, they have a couple extra functions too, which are fun. Pattern edit mode here, let's look at that hi-hat track. So trigger select number 3. By holding shift and pressing paste, I'm shifting my whole sequence towards the right. Only for that trigger channel, of course. And copy is to the left. That'll probably be more noticeable if I do it to the Pico voice channel. Hold shift and paste. twice. Or go back 3. That's a nifty function right there. Now remember that bass line? Let's unmute it, right? We'll go back to the mute here and we'll turn on. Now, here's another cool feature of the copy paste. If we go to tap edit here and select the CV channel, I'll copy and paste our Octave buttons. That's going to be in the cheat sheet that I'm working on. All these little button combinations that aren't necessarily super intuitive. So cool. Now the copy and paste works for tracks too. Let's say I want this hi-hat sound to do the same thing that the Pico voice is doing. So first we'll go to channel 6, which is the Pico voice. We'll copy it, and then we'll go to the hi-hat and we'll paste it. And now we play it. So now our hi-hat is mimicking the same thing that the Pico voice is doing. Now, there are parameters that you can edit per step as well. Let's go to a different pattern. Let's start something fresh. Pattern play here and go to pattern number 3. Is there anything there? No, it's empty. Pattern edit mode again, trigger select. It's already selected the hi-hat, and I can give us a little bit of a metronome here. So now if I press shift and this first one over here, I can go to probability and you'll notice that that first step sometimes will sound and sometimes will not, right? And this is a really cool way to add some interest, to add some variation without you having to do it manually. Now retrigger here is a lot like that fill mode. So we can choose any value that we want down to 24, and this is cool for doing these ratchet kind of things. UTM is micro timing, so this is very cool for making sort of flams and stuff. So why don't we try creating a flam between clap and snare? That's going to be cool. So first let's give ourselves a 4 on the floor here. Tune this kick drum down, make it a little shorter. Sounds nice. Now we'll give ourselves a clap and a snare on the backbeats. And let's do that with tapping. It's easier. Record. I like it. Save it. I didn't quite like that little hi-hat thing. Let's go to trigger select here. Number 3. Hold shift, press the first button, and we'll go to retrigger and turn it off. Okay, now let's do our flam. Okay, so first we'll choose the clap right here. Now with shift, we'll press that right there, and we could go to micro timing and make it happen late. There we go. A setting of 4 is enough. Now we just press the other one and do the same there. Make it 4. So now we have that nice flammed snare plus clap. That's the micro timing. Now what I did just now wasn't exactly necessary, because you can copy paste steps as well. So if this one has the flam I like, I can push it, copy, push the next one, and paste. So you can have the same amount of micro timing adjustment for any step that you want. Add a clap right there, and we can make this clap do the same thing. Just go Shift, go to the first one, copy, choose that one now, and paste it. And it's going to be delayed the same amount. Or I can make it even more delayed. I can edit it now. That's kind of cool. It's a little bit slower than the other two. I can do the same with the hi-hat, for example. Let's go back to pattern edit. Trigger select the hi-hat. Hold shift and select a step. And I can add micro timing to any of these steps. That's a way to create your own kind of swing. So it's not the same thing as recording unquantized manually, but you can achieve similar results. So you can do sort of more loose hip hop kind of sloppy beats this way, which is really fun. When you're in this mode, if you want to delete or add a step, you just use Shift. So I can delete all of the steps without having to get out of the step events mode, right? Because just tapping them just gives you the screen to edit. So if you want to actually alter the pattern, you have to hold the Shift, right? And then I can come over here and add some micro timing for a few of these. Maybe change the probability, and on one of them we can do a little bit of a retrigger. That's going to be cool for kind of the trap heads out there, you know, be able to retrigger in triplets the hi-hats. It's going to be fun. Now let's have a look at the LFO mode. To make this fun, we'll connect my LFO1 to the CV input of my filter. And we have that nice one note bass line going there. It's going to work well for this. Trigger select, encoder 1. Remember, trigger select encoder 2 gets you the CV page. Well, encoder 1 gets you the LFO, right? And here you can choose between LFO 1 and 2. We want 1 for now. The waveform right now is sample and hold, but there is square, saw, triangle, and sine as well. So the classic waves plus sample and hold. This is the clock division or multiplication. So it can be twice as slow as the clock or 16 times as fast, right? And there's even an attenuator. There's even an amp setting over here, which is very handy in case you're sending this to an input that doesn't already have an attenuator. Let's check it out. Let's change it to a sine wave. Huh. I think it's muted. Let's go to the mute. Aha! See, LFOs are off. Remember, if your LFOs aren't working, check the mute page. You know what? Let's program a bass note that just stays solid. Let's go back to the LFO screen, which is trigger select encoder A. Let's go to LFO 1. Here, frequency. Now we can really tell, right? That's quarter notes. Nice. So LFO2, I could use it for the panning of my pico voice, right? Right now it's kind of random, but I could use it for the panning of the pico voice. That would make it rhythmic, that would make it follow what we're doing here. Hi, this is day 2 of my recording for the drum sequencer manual, and I'd like to start today with a little trick. Let's say you want to use a sample, a loop, instead of a one hit as the basis of your tempo. I've loaded one right here into the sample drum. Right, let's put it in perform, and over here we have a nice sort of Simmons tom kind of sound, and this is it's a samba loop, samba drum set loop from a vinyl record. There are 2 ways to match the tempo of your beat to the tempo of your loop. One is to leave the loop as is and then find the BPM to match the loop. The other is to choose a tempo that you like and then tune the sample to match that tempo. I really like the way this sounds and I like the BPM, so we're going to go that route. We're going to use our sample as the basis of our loop. So the first thing we need to do is select that trigger and activate it on the first step and then play it back. Now if we go to pattern play mode, we can now adjust the tempo. This is interesting. This is a 7/8 samba beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not what we want right now. We want 4, 4. There we go. 98 seems to be the BPM. Now, in order to be sure, we can program a little hi-hat and see if it lines up. So let's go to trigger select. This is the hi-hat right here. So let's go trigger select hi-hat and we'll give ourselves a hi-hat on the upbeats. Really nice. Now we can use tap edit mode. Like that sound. And the big kick drum on the ones. What else have we got here? That's nice. Clap on the backbeats here. Let's make that clap a little darker. Nice. What else have we got? Yeah, that Carpa's strong voice there. Let's do a little beat with that one. If we want to change the tempo now, it won't be so easy, right? Normally, if you're only using one hit, you can simply change the tempo without any problems. So let's say we want to make this beat go faster. Let's go into the mute page here, and we're going to shift click on channel 1. That's gonna solo it. Actually, not 1, 3. All right. Now what we can do is go to the pattern play mode, bring that up to the tempo we want, let's say 112, and over here we'll tune up well, it seems we need to have a finer tune for this BPM, so we're gonna have to compromise. And we'll have to make the tempo a little bit slower. That sounds about right. So now let's go back to the mute page and unsolo that. Nice. So it's a little bit more upbeat. I love that vinyl texture under there. Super nice. Okay, so let's create some variations. Let's go back to pattern screen. We'll choose pattern 2. Okay, save that. Now step, we can record a fill. And save it. Before we move away from that pattern, let's go back to pattern play mode. All right. So the way to get to song mode is you press Shift and Bank, right? And then you get this screen right here. The first position is song number, and you can have up to 16 songs. Okay. The next one is the position. So this is where you determine which pattern goes in which position. But before we set that, we need to set the length of our song. Let's say we want it to be just 16 bars. We'll consider it more like a section than a complete song. Our patterns are actually in bank B. Let's just distribute these 4 times each. So position 1, B1. Position 2, we also want B1. Position 3, B1. And position 4, we want the fill. So that's going to be B4. So that way it'll go through all 3 of our beats with the fill at the end of every section. Let's go to position 1, and when I hold Shift and Bank again, it's going to put me in song play mode. And it shows me right here what position I'm in and what pattern that position is. So let's play in here. And it cycles back around. So now we've created a song using 4 different patterns in different ways. And of course you can make them longer. You can have up to 16 songs in there. Oh yeah, let's save that because we like it. And length is the number of patterns. So if you have longer patterns, that'll give you more bars, right? So one 4-bar pattern is gonna last 4 times as long as a single bar pattern. So keep that in mind. The length is not measured in measures, but in patterns. Now, when we are in song mode here, we can actually arm a pattern to play. So anytime I want 4 to play, I can just press . Now in song mode, you can use the step keys to quickly change which song. You can use it sort of like an Ableton clip launcher thing. So if each song is sort of a section, you can have section 1 repeat for a while, and then when you want to, you can press 2 here and it'll go to song 2. Now if you're in song play mode, and we're in song number 1, If you want to quickly go to the first position, just press clear. So by pressing clear, it resets the song to position number 1 so you can start it at the beginning. You can also do that while it's playing. So that's position 2 there. If I want to go back to position 1, I just press the clear and it goes back to 1. See, at the end of the current playing pattern. Now it's going to keep going. 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to go back to 1 here. Press clear. Back to 1. So that's another way that you can manipulate your song in real time while it's playing. Now there's a settings page we haven't talked about yet, and the way to access it is by pressing Shift and play. And here the first option is sync, and you can choose master, which is what's set right now. So the drum sequencer is the master clock. This is the default BPM for when the machine turns on. This is the pulse width of the triggers. So right now it's 10 milliseconds, but we can make it shorter all the way down to 2 milliseconds if needed. And this is the clock output subdivision. So right now the clock is outputting 1 to 1, which is great for modular, so you can synchronize an external sequencer to it, but you can change that to up to 48p, as some drum machines expect a much faster clock than 1 per beat. So let's leave it where it was. There's another page, so I hold Shift and press play again, and we have this option right here, copy. So if I add a bar to a 1 bar pattern, the sequencer will fill that out with a copy of the first bar. If I change that to manual, it will not do that. I think I'll leave it at manual. Reset on and off basically is the behavior of channel 16 here. So you can have channel 16 be just a normal trigger track, or you can have it be the reset. Now MUT is the behavior of the accent outputs while the track is muted. In the on, which is the default state, steps with accents will be muted when the track is muted. In the off state, tracks with accents will output accent voltage even when the track is muted in mute mode. And this AC setting right here is where you can set the level of your accent output. You can choose between 10 and 5 volts, and this can be adjusted per track. All I have to do is push the button to the corresponding track and set that level between 10 volts and 5 volts. And you don't get it for the last 4 over here because you only have 12 accent outputs. And that's pretty much it for this manual. If you want a factory reset, you just have to turn on the machine while holding play and stop. So hold these two, turn it off, turn it back on, and that'll reset it to factory settings in case you get a little lost. And yeah, I think this is it for today. Let's end by listening to our song number 1. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you liked this video. I hope you're enjoying your drum sequencer. I'll see you soon. Stay noisy.